Namo Sakya Muni Buddha. Namo Sakya Muni Buddha. Namo Sakya Muni Buddha. Thank you, 妙禅法师。
Thank you, Venerable Yohui.
So I'll transfer to
Okay, so a very good evening and an auspicious greetings to all our Dharma brothers and sisters online. Thanks again, Venerable Ji, for inviting me to share, the Dharma again this evening. And the topic that I'm going to share with you tonight is transforming connective knowledge into prajna. No, I'm sorry, connective knowledge into prajna wisdom. As we all know, in order to be happy and to be in good health, first of all, we must first discipline our mind, and then wisdoms and virtue will naturally come to you. But do we ask ourselves a question? Why do we need to have transformation? And what is transformation? And how can we transform knowledge into wisdom? So this will be a few so-called content that I will share with you tonight based on this topic. Now, what is transformation then? I'll probably say once we say it's a transformation, it's actually a drastic change in a form of appearance. So how do we know that such a transformation has actually taken place? So maybe I just start with a very famous story that I think most of you all have heard it before. And that is Angulimala, the story of Angulimala. Actually, Angulimala is a very brilliant boy. And he came from a middle-class family, a quite well-off family. And because he's very intelligent, he's a brilliant boy. And so in his class, there are a lot of students and his friends that were jealous of his talent. And how they're going to so-called attack this classmate? They try to poison the teacher's mind by saying some evil words to the teacher. And this teacher was poisoned. And then he just wondering why Angulimala recently his action is so weird and so on. And so he tell Angulimala, if you want to continue to study in my school, you have to do a project. And what kind of project does the teacher give to Angulimala? He says, well, your task is to collect 1,000 fingers. And I just want the little finger, not any other little finger from the human beings. It's unbelievable. Instead of rejecting such a thing, Angulimala just agreed to do it. And then he says, because I want to graduate, so I will do as you told. So he just set off. Then he found that wherever he go, why these people is staying away from him, but not knowing that he's actually creating, an evil deeds. So he starts to harm people. He starts to take the little finger. And then after he has collected many, he don't know where to store the fingers. He sometimes tried to tie them together and hang on the tree. And then it was being stolen by the bird. And then he's trying to hold it somewhere. And then this thing will just, been eaten up by other animals. So he was wondering, what can I do with all these little fingers collected? So he tied a string and just, put round his neck. And then he went round. So by the time when he come to 999 little fingers, he spotted Buddha. And then before Buddha went to the forest, this villagers was telling the Buddha, Buddha, stop going to that forest. That is someone, called Angulimala that dwelt in the forest. And he will come up to harm people. So please don't go to the forest. But the Buddha, well, it's okay, it doesn't matter. So the Buddha just walked into the forest. And so when Angulimala spotted the Buddha, he chased after the Buddha. But even the Buddha goes on a very serene, very unhurried kind of pace. He walked very slowly. But Angulimala, despite of his formidable speed and strength, he cannot catch up with the Buddha. And he gets, angry, and he gets, frustrated, and he screamed at the Buddha, stop, can you please stop? And then the Buddha turned to him without any anger. And then he speaks directly to Angulimala. He says, Angulimala, I have already stopped. I have stopped killing and harming. And so now is the time for you, Angulimala, to do so. Angulimala was struck. He was wondering why this man speaks so serenely. And then he was taken back by his words. And he threw away his weapon. And then he went back to the monastery with the Buddha. And he later became a monk. So in the course of time, after the period of some trial, because they was wondering whether, he's fit to be in the Sangha group. So after a period of trial, he eventually succeeded in purging his mind, that he is free of greed, free of hatred and delusions. And he realized for himself that as a Buddhist or as a Sangha, the goal is to get enlightened. And so he practiced very diligently. And finally, he was enlightened. So from the story of Angulimala, it actually teaches us the possibility of enlightenment. Every one of us can be enlightened. Enlightenment is not a kind of subject or is something that is tangible. No. When I was teaching in Singapore, one of the Dharma students asked me, teacher, can you please tell me, how do I know whether I'm enlightened or not? So I asked him, I said, do you want me to serve you a certificate and to write there so and so that you are enlightened because you have attended the Dharma class? It is not something that can be certified. It's actually an experience. And so it can be awakened in any most extreme circumstances. And if the people is willing to take the change, and it will come. So this is the story of Angulimala. And we know the change of Angulimala is actually a symbol of spiritual transformation. So every one of us can attain it. So now I'm going to ask, what is connective knowledge then? I'm sure every one of us are very knowledgeable. Like Amir. He's so knowledgeable because he's a teacher and he teaches the children. So what is knowledge and what is connective knowledge then? So it's actually our 8 consciousness. 8 consciousnesses. So what is connective? Connective knowledge is actually referred to a person's stored information. Next slide, Edwin. Thank you. Yeah, it is a person's or our stored information. And in Buddhism, we say is our consciousness. And in our consciousnesses, there are 8 different consciousness. The first 5 organs is our ear, our eyes, our ear, nose, toes, tongue, and nose, tongue, and the body. So this is the 5 organs. These 5 organs need something to activate, because our eyes, without that, you cannot activate. Take for example, if I'm, blind, I can't see anything. So even there's beautiful pictures in front of me, I wouldn't be able to view it. Why? Because the consciousness, which is the 6th consciousness, is not functioning, because no information sent to him, and so doesn't have any effect. So these stored informations are such like our memories, especially our thoughts. Okay, now we are coming to another part of it. Actually, consciousness is actually our intellectual activities. And what is it? It is the thinking, the reasoning, and remembering it. I share a story. Is actually, I just used the name, but it is actually a true story. John and Peter was a very good, they are good friends. So one day, John saw Peter talking to someone, which John doesn't like him at all. And because that fella, I call it Ming, okay? Ming is always jealous of John because, of his, he's so intelligent and he is so well-versed in so many, different kind of skill. And so John one day saw Peter talking to Ming. He was wondering what Ming is talking to Peter, what Ming is trying to, find out from Peter. So this is his what? His own thinking. And so when he approached 2 of them, immediately Peter and Ming stopped talking. And then John was wondering, why? When they saw me approaching and he stopped talking, something is wrong somewhere. And he remembered, yes, Ming was trying to, poison Peter's mind, trying to, something to talk back about me and ask Peter to stay away from me. So all these are John's connective thinking, and it is not true. So the next slide, I will try to figure it out and tell you what is the knowledge and the connection to it. Why do we need to turn it to prajna wisdom? So the definition of knowledge is actually the stored conscious and the accessible information, we call it the memories. And then knowledge is the understanding of the information that was passed to us. And then it becomes an experience. Take for example, if I doesn't know, the language of Tagalog, even when they speak to me in Tagalog, I won't understand because I doesn't have that knowledge, in within my consciousness. So I doesn't understand this language. But if I happens to learn, I study Tagalog. So when someone speaks to me in that language, then I will be able to understand. Oh, yes. Oh, he's trying to explain this and that to me. So this is actually a knowledge that we accumulated or we experience it through our study. So the next slide, you see, intellectual activities. Take for example, just now John, Peter and Ming, these are the activities that try, to get into our consciousness. And then with the stored informations I have in my consciousness, and then with the memories that were stored in, it starts to generate or cultivate, to create thoughts that comes in. And eventually with the flow of it, it comes the form. And actually, who is the creator of all these things? It's the I, right? It's me. I'm the person who create all the suffering. I'm the person who create all this misunderstanding. So most people think and believe that the self is the key to intrapersonal understanding. Next slide, please, Edwin. And they think they can be their own master. Do you think you can be your own master? When you are angry, can you tell the self, no, I cannot get angry? When you are in fear, take for example, during this pandemic period, everyone has fear. Hey, will I get, infected with the virus? Oh, I better not go to the crowd. In Malaysia, because, the cases actually keep increasing. So every one of us has fear. When we see each other, we say, hey, do you do self-test? Make sure you do self-test before you come to our temple. Hey, do you go to the crowd, or do you, wash your hand before you come in? So and so, we have fear. But this kind of fear, we can't stop ourselves. It's just naturally, it comes in. Why? Because we cannot control it. So if we are our master, we can control everything. But apparently we can't. Even when we are angry, or when we are happy, or when we are sorrow, we can't, because I is not the superior. It's only the wisdom, and later we are going to talk about it. So the purpose of why we need transformation is from the better, from worse to the better, from sadness to the happiness. So transforming the connective knowledge into wisdom is the only way to solve the problem of the self. So now we're going to know how, what is wisdom, and why is wisdom so important? There's a word that I want to share, where I just wrote on the piece of paper, and this morning I was reading an article, and it comes up with the explanations of wisdom. Maybe I can kind it later. Okay, I just go on with the slide first. The next slide, please, Edwin. Okay, Dr. Viktor Frankl, he's a neurologist and is also a psychiatrist. I wrote a book that he wrote, when I was maybe in my mid-20s. He wrote the book of Man's Search for Meaning when he was, kept in the concentration camp. He go through a very tough time, and how he survived through this concentration camp, because he searched for a meaning, and is, how do I survive to go out? How do I survive in this concentration camp? And there is a words that I'm going to share with you, and it is a quote word by Dr. Viktor Frankl. Next slide, please, Edwin. He said, the purpose of life isn't to escape our problems or to make them disappear. Most of us, when we encounter problems, we will say, oh, please, please, go away, go away. And then we are actually trying to escape from problems, from fear, or whatever. But he says, a life of purpose comes from learning to restrain with pain, with awareness, and conscious suffering. We know why I'm angry, why I'm jealous, I cannot escape from this, but how can I transform it? So he says we can transform break down into breakthroughs. And by learning to navigate the chaotic water with a sense of purpose and sense of meaning. So sometimes we ask ourselves, what is the purpose of being, angry? What is the purpose of I'm being jealous of, or I envy someone's, good life and yet I'm suffering? What is the problem? What is the point of making your life suffering by having this kind of thoughts? So why not we transform this breakdown? So-called breakdown, let's say, during the pandemic time, a lot of shops, a lot of, entrepreneur, they have lost their business. So how they break through? A lot of restaurants in Malaysia, they go online. Isn't this a good change? And in future, it might bring in much better results comparing to just, having the restaurants and people coming in to place their order. Now they can sell it online. What you want, I take your order and I prepared, you take it and you enjoy it at home. So it's a great change. So this is breakthrough. You have to accept, at this period of time, it's a chaotic time, especially for Russia and Ukraine. Why? Because of jealousy, because selfishness, and there's war that's going on. Then how we go through? We have to have the meaning of why we are living in, this chaotic period. We have to survive. So what is the key to survive? We need wisdom. So that's the words that Viktor Frankl shared with us. And so we can actually transform what you call suffering if we understand how the connective knowledge works and how it can lead us to liberation. So only prajna wisdom. When we say prajna wisdom, I think it means enlightened mind or our pure Buddha nature, that it only allows us to see clearly. It's like a mirror reflections that is written in a book. We are always, confused, because there are a lot of defilements that comes in. It's just like the dust that cover off the mirror, that doesn't allow us to see clearly. And this is why we have a lot of delusion thoughts, we have scattered thoughts, and then it makes up, we become jealous, we become anger, and we become angry, and then it causes a lot of suffering in our life. So we're going to look at the next slide. So how can we transform connective knowledge into wisdom, which is acquired by the 8 consciousnesses? How we transform it? I am sure everyone heard of the story before. There was a prisoner. Actually, the king was a very dedicated, student or a follower of the Buddha. And he always heard the Buddha says, mindfulness, a meditator, a practitioner, his mind is very calm and he's very mindful. So the king was wondering, what do you mean by mindfulness? How to cultivate mindfulness? So he doesn't believe and he wants to test it out. So he tell one of the prisoner, which are supposed to be sentenced to death, he tell the prisoner, I'm going to free you if you're able to comply to what I asked you to do. I want you to hold a bowl of oil on your head. And you go around the street one round. And before you come back to the palace, you must make sure that you don't drop a single drop of oil. If you manage to do so, then you'll be free. And so this prisoner says, okay, I will try. And so he had a bowl of oil put on top of his head. And he went out to the street. But this king is very intelligent. He asked a lot of performers to go into the street. And it was so busy and it was so noisy. Everyone is enjoying the acrobat play, beautiful women dancing in the street, singing, and so on. So many attractive, activities going on the streets. But the prisoner just go around the crowds and then very, very carefully, he walked back to the palace without dropping a single drop of oil. And the king was surprised. He couldn't believe it. And he asked the prisoner, don't you see the crowds in the street? Don't you see the acrobats? Don't you hear that there are beautiful songs and dancing on the street? The prisoner replied, I see nothing, I hear nothing. My mind only have one thought, and that is, if I drop the oil, I will lose my life. Mindfulness will not be distracted by external influences. And so this time the king understands what the Buddha taught, mindfulness. So how we cultivate mindfulness? And through cultivating of this mindfulness, it actually helps us to build up our wisdom. So the next slide, I'm going to share with you on how our mind works. So I use this, sentence. I say most people do not know to understand or do not understand the function of the eight consciousness. Instead, to use it to create a better future for themselves, they actually misuse it and to create karma. And then it later leads to suffering. So now we're going to look at the five consciousness and the five organs, and then the six consciousness and the seven consciousness and the eight consciousness. So the five organs we are referring to, our eyes, ear, nose, tongue, and body. And then the consciousness, we call it the mind. All right. So as you see from the picture, the mind only analyzes, it only thinks, and it has a very short memory. Take, for example, today, I have shared the thoughts, and probably after half an hour later, and then Venerable Tzu will ask, hey, what did Venerable Miao Tan share just now? She said something on prajna, and probably she said something on wisdom. You probably have forgotten. We have a very short memory. But when we say the subconsciousness mind, it actually referring to our deeper eight consciousness. And that is we call the manas and the alayas. Alaya is actually the stored memories of our past, or even many years back. I can still remember it. When the condition is ready, it will just sprout. So when we say the condition is ready, it's when we encounter, take for example, I'm afraid of darkness. That is because when I was very young, there was a blackout. And me and my brother was trapped in the lift. And I started screaming and screaming, asking for help because I couldn't see my brother. And I was so frightened. And because of that experience, whenever there's a blackout, I will start to scream. Why? Because the seeds, has been stored in my consciousness. Without darkness, I wouldn't know that I have such a fear. But when it's darkness, appeared, I start to have that recognitions of my past memories, and I'll start to scream. I have fear of darkness. So this is, we call it the manas and the alayas. Okay, so now we're going to see how it works. Next slide, please. Okay, the manas and the alayas. So, okay, here is the conclusions of the previous stories. I say a simple transformation thought can totally turn a life around, and with a change of mind, just like Angulimala. And then the world we live is instantly will become better. So transforming the connective knowledge into prajna wisdom is actually a cultivation of thought transformation. So if we think positive, we will definitely be positive. But if we think negative, we will always be very negative. So in the book, Venerable Master says, we can change, we can transform the connective mind, the connective knowledge into prajna knowledge. Means we can transform a confused and ignorant mind into an enlightened mind. And we can transform a narrow-minded person to a broad-minded person. We can transform a divine view into a righteousness view. A pessimistic person can transform into an optimistic person. Or a very negative person, it can be transformed into a positive person. So transformation is a drastic change in either our form or our appearance. Or now I will add in another one is our thoughts. The transformation of our thoughts. Because when our thoughts change, our behavior change. And when our behavior change, our life change. Okay, so what the Venerable Masters wants us to do in humanistic Buddhism. Next slide, please, that twin. Venerable Master says, look with the eyes of compassion. You have to tap, Ivan. You can tap them, yeah. Look at the eyes of compassion. When we look at someone, we don't look at suspicious eyes. We don't look at eyes of anger, but instead we look at eyes of compassion. But when we hear mindfully. We hear with mindfulness. We don't hear just one side. Sometimes like John, and Peter and Ming was talking. But John doesn't know what their conversation's about. And because of his own thought, he thinks that Ming is jealous of him. And then he's trying to boycott Peter to stay away from him. But this is not true because he didn't hear the actual conversations. And then the master says, so smell, how do we smell? Of course, we want to have fragrance, nice, fresh air. So we should not pollute the environment. We should love our environment. We should keep the place clean. So that we can breathe in fresh air. During the Tea Earth campaign, we say we try to encourage everyone to plant trees so that we can, bring the environment, a greeny environment, and then a fresh, nice place. We can breathe in fresh air and so on. So be environmental friendly. Please do not litter. Please do not just, throw things into the river and so on. Recently, we have a very bad flood in Malaysia. So when the flood, subsided, you can see bunch and bunch of plastics. All the trash was along the road. Where it comes from, it doesn't drop from the heaven. It doesn't drop from someone, but it's we human beings, just, for our own convenience, we just throw it somewhere. And so this flood actually tells us a very good lessons, or give us a very strong message of what is environmental friendly. And then about tongue. Our tongues, besides tasting, it helps us to talk. So Venerable Master encourages us to speak good words, and that is the 3 good deeds, one of it. And then what can we do? What can the body do? We can do good deeds to help people. And then what is our thoughts? We have to think positive. So think good thoughts. Another tap on it. Our mind must think good thoughts. So with this, it actually blends in with what the Venerable Master taught us in humanistic Buddhism is the 3 goodness and the 4th giving. With kindness, with compassion, and then by doing good deeds, by speaking good words, by having good thoughts, it actually helps us to lead a happy life. Next slide, please. So if we are able to transform thoughts, it actually allows us to manage every cause and conditions that comes along the way. Irregardless whether now we are facing the great climate change, or we are facing the pandemic, or even in the Russia-Ukraine war. When we are in such a situation, how do I survive? How do I carry on with my life? So by letting go of all the interpersonal discriminations, we'll be able to transcend our life with prajna wisdom. So when we talk about wisdom, again, I'm searching for that word. It's a very good sentence that I think I wrote it somewhere. Let me read it out. Sorry, yeah, just give me. Oh yeah, it says wisdom and virtue will gradually come to someone who have the desire to follow the path to be able to discipline the mind. So if we are able to discipline our mind, to think good thoughts, to look at the right thing, and to do the good, deeds, I'm sure our life will emit with the light of wisdom. And then if we are conscious with our conscious mind, or our connective, knowledge and so on, we will be able to transcend our life, and we can lead our life in a so-called happiness and then peaceful or joyful life. Yeah, so this is my sharing with you tonight for the transformation of the connective knowledge into prajna wisdoms. So there are 20 minutes open to you all for questions if you have any. Not everyone has perfect wisdom that we know how to deal, with our life if we encounter like difficulties or chaotic life. We are able to transcend it. 好安静哦。Because there's not much on there. Let me see how many participants we have today. Okay, there are 10 of them. You want me to name you? Let me go to the slides. Okay. Ube. Yeah, I remember. I remember you that you joined me in the last session.
Hi, Shafu. Good
Hello.
evening.
Good evening.
I find today's lesson a top up because we are learning the Heart Sutra with
Oh yes.
yeah, and the past lesson we touched on the alaya, and it quite confused me. But tonight with the explanation that it's the subconscious, so you mean to say that the 10% is the manas and the 90% is the alaya? Okay. So it helped me finally kind of see what alaya really is.
You see, if we talk about the village, Venerable Master used an example of the village. He says the mind is the chief. Okay. And these villagers, they live in the village. And in the village, there are people that, let's say the eyes, the ear, the nose, and the tongue. These are different villagers, the character that living in this village. So they will try, let's say the eyes, he went shopping and he saw something, let's say, oh, I love the food so much. Let's say I love mango. And I say, oh, I saw mango and I want to buy some mango back because it's so tasty. The eyes see it and he sent a message to the conscious, which is the sixth consciousness. Okay. That is, he remembered because he loved mango. And then the seventh consciousness is the attachment to mango, is the attachment. And the eighth consciousness is, yes, because you love it, so I store it for you. I keep these memories for you, just like I shared earlier, because I have fear, because since young, there was a blackout and then I was trapped in the lift and total darkness. I was starts to scream. But now I'm old already. I almost forgot that I have such an experience. But whenever there is, blackout, I will start to have fear. And what's that occur? Because there's a deep memories inside the eighth consciousness. So Master says, if the mind, the village chief is happy, then the villagers is happy. Which means if the consciousness itself, if let's say I love mango, all right, and I went to the market, I wanted to look for mango, and I couldn't find mango, and I really crave for mango, and I couldn't get it, I would get angry. And I will probably, ask the store, the fruit store, why don't you sell mango today? What's the problem with you? Whose fault? It's me. But why do I have such a reaction? It's because my attachment. And the condition is ready. So the eighth consciousness send a message to you, and then it becomes. The sixth consciousness starts to do the action. You see, like our eyes. If I remove my spectacle, I couldn't see anything, but I have my eyes. But why is it that it is not functioning? Because it doesn't send message to the sixth consciousness. So if you want to say who is the culprit to all these divine thoughts, narrow mind, anger, who is the culprit? Most of them might say, oh, the sixth consciousness. But actually it's not. It's the 7 and the 8.
The 8.
Yes. Yeah.
So that is why, Shafu, that we are reminded to keep cultivating good practices so that we keep putting in what they said, the good seed into the 8th.
Yes.
Because it's the 8th that's really signaling.
Yes.
Okay.
The 8 will tell the 7, do it, go. Because it's the attachment. So he listens to, the number 8. Number 8 say, go. Then number 7 will go. Number 7 will tell the number 6, hey, action start. This is how it goes. Yeah. So it's very important when we say meditations, it's actually to calm our mind, because our mind are just like, a very busy water. And then when we calm the mind, it's subtle. And then we are able to see very clearly what's inside the cup or the water, whether it's clear or it's faulty, or it has some elements inside the water. We can see very clearly. And so with that, then we are able to create or generate or to what we call form this wisdom. Because a busy mind cannot see clearly. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Shafu.
You're welcome. Peter?
Good evening, Sifu, and
Good evening,
everyone else.
Yeah.
Thank you for a really good talk. I really enjoyed that sentence where it says, the willingness to discipline the mind will lead to wisdom and virtue to arise. I really like that. So thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
I guess my question is the one that I've been struggling practically is, as we said, that the first thing we should do is to practice mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got the meditation, we've got even chanting, they're all part of the mindfulness practice.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that when I'm actually out and about in the world, the mind goes, the eighth consciousness will bring thoughts into my head, into my mind, which are unwholesome thoughts, right? So I guess I want to ask, like, in your opinion, as for a beginner, what's the best way to deal with unwholesome thoughts? If I may add a little bit more information, would be like, as a beginner, I noticed that I don't have the prajna wisdom to transform. I don't have the solution of how to transform an unwholesome mind into a good mind. And sometimes even when I do try to transform it, it kind of, the unwholesome mind actually gets expanded, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, should I just acknowledge it and then go like, this is unwholesome and then move on? Or should I acknowledge it and then try to turn it into a more wholesome seed continuously, or what should I do with it?
Now, when when you realize that you have actually unwholesome seeds, unwholesome thoughts, then you are enlightened, because at least you see there is an unwholesome. You don't think that, this action is still nothing. It's nothing. But at least you realize, take for example, when you have jealousy, and you realize that, hey, how come this jealousy arises? I know it's no good, but I cannot stop it, because you know that this is unwholesome thoughts, right? So when you realize that you have these jealousy thoughts, you are already enlightened. So another effort that you have to put in is you have to go furthermore, asking yourself, Why are you jealous? What is the cause of your jealous? Like me, why I have fear of darkness is because when I'm a childhood. Then gradually, now I understand Buddhism and I know these are all what? Emptiness. It is not true. And it is because of my experience, all the thoughts that I have previous when I was young. And this is not true. There has no fear at all about darkness. It's just because the electricity just breaks down. So when it comes back, when the power comes back, the light will light up. So what is there got to be fear of? Then these seeds will be, what we call purified. You will not be totally removed, all right, but you will be purified. As we say, is if let's say I have a seed of anger, all right, and people say, hey, no, Venerable Master is very calm. You know, Miao-Tan Shifu is very compassionate. She never show her anger. Who told you? Because my seeds of anger has no chance to sprout, because I keep adding fertilizer, adding soil. I even get all the good, fertilizer to press the bad seeds all the way down. I add in soil and earth and whatsoever. So these bad seeds, the anger of the seeds was being buried deep inside, but the seed is there. It's only when the condition is ready, this seed actually is trying to sprout, but then because I keep adding and adding, it doesn't have a chance to pop out from the ground. So you don't see my anger. But when I told the students, I always tell my students, I don't trigger me, don't try to challenge me. If you put on my fire, I tell you, you are finished. So this is unwholesome thoughts, right? Unwholesome seeds. It is there, but I realize I have that. And I know if I get angry, not me who suffer, other people who will suffer. So I doesn't want that to happen because I learned Dharma. Buddha teach me I must have compassion. I must speak good words. So I must try to tolerate. I must try to be patient. So these seeds will not, it will not just sprout. It will not grow. It will probably settle a very deep into many generations after many lifetimes. Maybe one day the condition is ready, this thing comes out. Yeah, so it is good that we know that it's unwholesome. So by saying that, you are already very mindful. Because you will know that, hey, I should not do this. But sometimes after this, when we speak out some words that hurt other people, then I realize, oh, I should not say that. I must, phrase it in a better way. Okay, this is an experience that it accumulated. So in future, if you are mindful enough, you are going to say something, then you'll try, to beautify your words or your sentence that you will not hurt other people. That is prajna. Yeah, and that will help us to lead a better life. Yeah, okay. I hope I answered to your question, Peter.
Thank you.
Yeah. No other questions? 我们大家都很有智慧的, right? We are very wise person because we learn the Dharma and we are practicing, accordingly. So we are actually on the path to enlightenment. Yeah.
I think in the group, there's one person message me.
Oh, okay.
Shifu, I don't understand, but I don't know how to ask the questions. Because it's too deep for her. Because maybe there is a first or second time that she heard about the consciousness. I think maybe like what Mary Tan mentioned just now, the 7th and the 8th. The 7th, whether it's really the self or not the self, or the 8th conscious is belongs to who, or the ayala, the alaya. That is how we really, I think that will be like the example. If some of you join the class of Hui Zhi Fa Si about the Coca-Cola, are we really like Coca-Cola? Or it's just kind of the habit? That's the the 8 is the one called the number 7 to get the Coca-Cola. And then after become a habit, then you thought that you like Coca-Cola, but it's just kind of habit. Maybe this life or maybe previous life. So that is what like Reverend Tan mentioned, where we store and what kind of seed that we store. Just now Reverend Tan mentioned that it's not, the master will not angry. It's just the time, whether you step on the right time or not.
Yeah.
So of course, everybody will have the kind of emotions. It's just how we cultivate using the 7 and the 8. Who is the mentor for ourselves, for this life, and for the future life. I always tell everybody, because some people like to ask, so for why you do so many things? Oh, I'm preparing for my next life. So then my next life, I don't need to do so much things. So I plant first. So after plant the seed, what will become the fruits? So the fruits, who's the one getting the fruits? Still yourself. So I'm preparing, because that is what I really heard from Reverend Master singing. He mentioned this one time, someone asked him, why you want to build so many branches of one science in everywhere? Then Reverend Master Singh said that, so that in my next life, when I come back, I can find the temple. I still have place for cultivation. So actually I'm preparing for myself in my next life. So that is really planting the seed. And who's the one again? Still ourselves. And of course, many people also ask Venerable Master Singh, why I want to build a school? Because Venerable Master Singh also answered the same questions and with the same answer. So that in my next life, I have the chance to continue to learn the Dharma. So that is the reason why he's saying that building a temple and also a school is not only for now, but it's for the continuous life. So that every life, every time's life spent, he has a chance to continue for the cultivation. So there is, of course, he will not tell people, you need to plant the seed, you have to do this, and then, but if he, this will be really like also the conscious that we have to do now, and not for now, but it's for the future. This is what I always remember, how to plant the seed. So I'm the one again, because the tree is still inside. Thank you.
That's why there are so many temples in Cebu. Okay. Okay. Just now the question they say they doesn't understand, and because they don't understand, and therefore they doesn't know what kind of question they can raise. So by not understanding, it's also a prajna. Why? Because I still have, to call the space to learn, and I need to continue learning, and I listen more to the Dharma. Then I'm cultivating my knowledge, and I'm cultivating wisdoms as well. So it doesn't matter when we say we don't understand. It's not that I don't get the message, but I doesn't know how to figure it together. It's just like a jigsaw puzzle. I saw a beautiful picture, but then because it comes in a little bit and pieces like that, it takes time for me to put them together to form the pictures that I can see. So it doesn't matter. Slowly, life is just like, jigsaw puzzle. We see things in different parts. Then when we put it together, we will see a complete picture. Yeah, so this is a form of cultivation and it takes time to. So, but it is always good that, we are practicing in a path of Dharma and we are following the path that our Venerable Masters is leading us, towards, humanistic. And it is really very beneficial to, we ourselves and most of the people, especially this chaotic period of time, war there, pandemic, climate changes. Yeah. And because of the teaching of the Venerable Master and also the Buddha, that it really helps us to break through and overcome a lot of challenges. Yeah. Thank you.
Emil, how's your mind today?
Distracted mind, Shifu.
Distracted mind.
Yeah, multitasking mind. Yeah. No comment. Okay, sorry.
Maybe Sheila would like to share something.
Sheila.
Hi, good evening. I
Hi.
enjoyed your talk, Master. You're a very good storyteller. You tell good stories. Right?
We can do voice recording for her next time. So we
Yeah.
have many stories to share.
So just like how she tells the stories, you really pay attention. You want to know what happens. Today I had a visit from one of my suppliers. So we were just chit-chatting. First, it started about what business I had to have him do for me. And then the conversation went to like the world, what's going on in the world, and the gasoline prices, and then how that's gonna trigger like inflation. And he was just saying like how hard it was during the COVID, because he's like an independent like contractor supplier. So he just depends if people call him to come and fix something, then he'll come. So he said during the COVID, he had lost a lot of business. And then now that it was just starting to pick up, he said, we're faced with another challenge. And he's like, oh, there's just like so much suffering. And so what I tried to do when I was talking to him, because I could feel like the uncertainty was kind of getting to him. He was just like getting discouraged. He was just like, oh, it's just so hard. It's just so hard. So what I tried to do was I tried to say, no, we should focus on the positive. This is not going to last a long time, but we got to learn how to work through all of this. And then one of the things that I mentioned is like, oh, because we learned during the pandemic how to go online, I said, well, if the gas is so expensive, at least everything's in place, that we don't have to drive here, drive there. The students don't have to drive. So that's like a small way of coping with the high cost of gasoline and other things. Parents can save because they can just have their kids log on online, and it was already all set up due to the COVID. But yeah, I really feel like the pain now that one challenge after another challenge after another challenge, it's really hard to be positive. But since we learned the Dharma, we know that it's impermanent, and then we need to like uplift other people, because if everybody starts to feel down about the situation,
Yeah.
we're not going to get anywhere. So that's why I just kept on encouraging him, like, oh yeah, it's going to be okay, things are going to be better, don't worry. And then I said, just don't think about the negative anymore. Just keep thinking positive. You have your health, you have your clients that had stuck through you thick and thin. I said, don't worry, you're a good person. If I know anybody, I'm going to refer you, just keep doing good. So I think he left my place a little better, which I hope we did. So
Yeah.
yeah. So.
That's a great sharing, a great words that you share with your clients. Yeah. Mm. It
Yeah, a
is
lot of
indeed-
people are very negative right now. It's like it's a
Yeah.
scary time. Even sometimes myself, I don't know how to prepare anymore. I really don't know how to prepare. Like, what is next? Like,
Yeah.
we-
We are kind of lost because
Yeah.
of, this period of time. But we always look to the other side.
Yeah.
Let's say during 2020, when it starts to have the COVID pandemic,
Mhm.
a lot of our so-called 那个叫什么社交的 our day learning center, the students, because they cannot come, they have to stay at home. So they says they have to pass time. So they learn how to cook, they learn how to clean up the house. And then it's to the surprise, it says, I never know that my house is so big. Now by doing it, then I know how big my house is. Why should I, just two of us, why do I need such a big house? Then she said, I'm trying to, move to another smaller house, and I can rent out this big house and I have more income in future. So isn't this is a good turn for her? And then another group of people, because they, doing nothing, they just cook, and then they become perfect chef. Even the family praise, hey, mommy, you cook such a nice food that you never ever did it before. So she becomes a very good chef. So isn't this a good change? So sometimes you try to, look into the better side, but not just to stay there and keep, on the same step, and then says, why is this? Then suffering is there that we cannot avoid. But if you want to stand on the path of suffering, then you are always on the path of suffering, and you will experience suffering. You have no chance to experience another, side of suffering, which is enjoyment. Yeah, because you didn't change your view.
Yeah, I told him, don't look at the negative, just focus on the positive. It'll get better.
Yeah.
And he's really good. So he's good at what he does. And I told him, don't worry, your clients are going to be there for you, because he's a hard worker. So as long as you stick to your principles, people will always rely on you. So they'll call you.
Yeah.
Maybe they're also suffering also. Maybe their business wasn't doing good, so they couldn't afford to call you.
Yes.
So, but I think once the good times come back, I said, don't worry, though, you'll be the first one they call. They might even refer you to other people too.
Yeah.
So it felt better.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
That's a good words. Yeah.
That's true. Okay.
All right. Thanks
That's
for
fine.
sharing. Anything else? No more. 还有吗？
So far, I like your topic, and I understand the discussion on the eight consciousness already from my own understanding. So I'll try to explain for the benefit of those who are new. I'll try to explain it from a layman's point of view on how I learn and understand this. The five consciousness is very common, or we always hear it also from science: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the body as the five senses. So many people can easily understand this. Now, in Buddhism, we talk about the six consciousness, or the six senses. The six is the mind, which science doesn't talk about. It's like separate from the five.
Yeah.
But in Buddhism, the mind is like the one that perceives all the five consciousness. So that's why it's also a sense, because it senses all the five different consciousness. Now, after the mind perceive from the external consciousness, the seventh one is the one that we hear as the judgmental mind. This is the mind that says, oh, I like, oh, I don't like. So it's the one making the decision which one I want, which one I don't want.
Mm-hmm.
And then the eighth consciousness is the habitual tendencies or the reactive tendencies. So many of us, we react to situation. So if we see somebody we don't like, we react with anger without even thinking about it. So this is the eighth consciousness, as Venerable Miao Tan said, eighth consciousness instructing the mind, the seventh consciousness, and then seventh consciousness instructing maybe the mouth to say something bad, something not nice. So this is how in Buddhism, it explains how the process of thinking is going about. Now, as a human, especially if we haven't talked about this, we don't see this as like separate, you know,
Yeah.
5 consciousness, and then 6 the mind, 7 the judgmental mind, and then the 8 the stored consciousness. We see it as one, right? And then we see it as self, as me. Everything lumped together. So that's why I noticed, because of this kind of explanation, and plus the understanding of the different teachings from the Buddha, for example, about impermanence, about non-self, about letting go. These things, once we are, as you mentioned, once we are able to piece in the puzzle, will help us to react with prajna wisdom, with understanding, and instead of reacting from the seed of the habitual tendencies, for example, we can now, as Peter have mentioned, he's able to realize that, oh, what I did is wrong, instead of just reacting. So hopefully for those who are starting, you don't get discouraged that you don't understand now. Hopefully you'll continue joining the study group.
Yes.
And over time, you'll understand, let's say, how to piece letting go and impermanence,
Yeah.
and the 5 precepts, for example. And once we can piece all of this together, then I'm sure you will be able to understand the different topics that we go through. So at least for now, maybe set aside this topic. Hopefully, I'm able to give a better understanding, maybe even a bit. And then later, when we learn the other parts of the Dharma, then you will be able to complete the puzzle, as Venerable Miao Tan has mentioned.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Edwin, for very clear sharing and explanations on, you know, your understandings of the 6 and 7 consciousness. Yeah. Actually, the
Fu.
actual culprit is the 7th consciousness.
Always judging.
He's the persons that do the judgment. I like it, I dislike. Go ahead if you like it. You know, stop it, you know, kill it if it doesn't like it. Yeah. He is the person who does the decisions. Yeah.
Shafus, Erwin, so I would like to clarify. The 6 is the conscious mind. The 7th is the judgmental mind, correct?
Mm-hmm.
The 6 is the perceptive mind, the one that perceives.
Okay. Thank you.
So there's a question from Paul. Is karma created in the 7th consciousness?
Karma is?
Is karma created in the 7th consciousness?
7 consciousness. Is hidden or is created?
He asks if it's created in the 7th
Oh.
consciousness.
Is karma created in the 7 consciousness? I would say is actually the link between the 5 and the 6. Because if you want the 7 consciousness to create something or to do action, he needs to have something that comes in. So because of the 5 organs, our eyes, our ears, our nose, he catches all these things from the external, and then he put it into the 6, we call it the sensations. Let's say when our eyes, like what I use an example, if I don't wear a glasses, I won't be able to see it, but I have an eyes here. So if I don't see it, I cannot create anything, right? In my nose, I lost the sense of smelling. Then again, I won't know what is, nice fragrance and bad, odor and so on. And it is because the 5 of them catches this thing, send it to the 6 consciousness. Then the 7 consciousness is the judge. He say, hey, number 6, take this thing, take this one. Okay, take this away, and so on. So whatever that is taken by him, the 7th, he will try to keep it because he might want to use it in future. So it will store into the 8 consciousness. So if you want to say, is the 7 is the culprit who create the karma, I would say he is the culprit, but without the help of the rest, he couldn't do it. It's just like a general who wants to fight. Okay, he gives the command, but if all his soldiers doesn't listen to his command, he cannot fight the battle. So it's similar. Yeah. So if you want to win a battle, you need the whole group. Am I right? You need a general to give the clear instruction. And then you need to have a strong group of troops in order to fight. Then you can win the battle. So they are actually together. We cannot have any of them, that is not related. They are actually interrelated. Yeah. Okay. That's the 7 conscious, only automatic thoughts or proposable thoughts. Automatic thoughts. You mean you just come in, automatically?
The reactive thoughts of
Huh?
our reactive thoughts versus the conscious thought that we say, I will do good, something like that, maybe.
Okay. Proposable thoughts. You see, when we use the word automatic, that means when it comes to a certain time, let's say our alarm clock, I set it to 9 o'clock, you wake me up. So automatically it will sound the alarm. Am I right? So that is being set. Then we call it automatically. But consciousness it doesn't work that sense. It doesn't work that way. It has something to do, I mean, we go deeply, it actually got to do with your experience or your habits. Okay. And then when we say, or it's a proposable thought, I would not say it's proposable. No, I can, hey, you come up. Hey, I want this thought. Hey, you come. No. So it's not automatic and it's not a proposable thought. I would say it's a habitual. Okay, it's a habitual reactions to our memories that we have on our 8 consciousness. And these memories, how it's been stored, it has accumulations, not in this lifetime, maybe in a past life and many lifetimes, these seeds has been planted inside. And like I say, when the condition is ready, it will just sprout. Oh, okay. Yeah, it is experience. It is our habits, but it cannot be automatically. It must be something. There must be something that trigger this thing. Take for example, why we want to attend these lessons? Because we want to learn Dharma, right? Because we want to learn more. That's why I attended this class. But if without this class, will you want to attend automatically? You won't. Because there is no, what we call the condition is not there. Even you have the cost, but the condition is not there for you. So even I want to attend the class, but there is no Dharma class around. So I don't got a chance. Yeah.
So how about the thought that, oh, I want to attend the Dharma class? So where did that come from, Sapo?
That will be your past sins, because you have cultivated in your past life that you have heard the teaching before.
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, now in this lifetime, the condition is ready for you. You know, when I was young, I never expect I'll become a nun. I thought I will be, you know, a person who enjoy luxury life. And I'll probably, you know, travel around, and that's what kind of life that I'm looking forward. But why I turned to become a nun, there must be a vow or a seed that is planted in my past life. So when I encountered Dharma, and then when I, you know, heard the Dharma and I experienced what the Buddha had taught about the Four Noble Truths, that is suffering, cessation, the cause of suffering, cessation, and the path to cessation of suffering. This really, you know, how we call connected to my life experience. Then I realized that, yes, this is something that I'm looking forward, because I'm suffering at this moment and I want to find a solution, you know, to my suffering. And this really comes in. And so it solved my problem. And after many years of learning the Dharma, and I think, yeah, it's the time for me to take up the path. And this is the time my past vow or the seeds that I planted, the condition is ready, and it just, you know, come into formation.
Yeah. So in short, it's very difficult or unlikely to for a thought to just pop up without going through some form of experience, right?
Yes.
So this is one thing that I keep on telling my kids also, that we have to cultivate. If we see someone good, somebody who we can look up to, we should cultivate more affinity with this kind of people, because it's giving us a good experience in our life.
Yes.
Wherein, for one, it can give help us to have a good thought, speech, or action, because as you mentioned, we need the experience before we can think of something, right? And so at the same time, we get to accumulate a lot of seeds, good seeds, which will be stored in our eighth consciousness. Which hopefully someday, with the right condition, it will be able to sprout.
Yes.
And we will say, why am I so lucky?
Yes. Yes, but there are so few people. Yeah, true, Paul. But if everyone practice, you know, the same, I'm sure from one person it will spread to two, from two it will multiply by 4, then it will go more and more and more. So it always starts from me. Always tell yourself, Paul, yeah, there are so, you know, few people that think likewise, and they are, you know, so compassionate or whatever. So it starts from me. I will start to spread compassions to 2 person, and from these 2 person, it will multiply to 4, to 8, to 10, and so on. Then you will see a lot of people, they are actually very compassionate. Yeah.
That's why it's even more important for us to be consciously looking for the good people to affiliate with, if we have a lot of bad friends, for example, then we should be consciously looking for the good ones, right? So that there'll be more good people around us. For me, I can say that I have a lot, maybe even everyone around me are good people for me. I have very few enemies actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can say that very few people would, make my life difficult.
But
I
to
would
me,
say
I
I'm
think,
lucky.
to me, I look in the other way. I love enemies because the enemy teach me a lessons. Because without their challenge, I really don't know what are the path that I should take. Maybe I'm a person that I have, anger and so on. And then it's because I have this reflection from other people because of their behavior. They show their anger and so on. Then I will start to think, oh my God, I'm just as bad as he is. And that is not what I want. Oh, thank you for showing me, in such an appearance. Then, yeah, that's my teacher. I always tell myself, thank you because you send me a message. Yeah, but sometimes it's not that enemies is no good. Enemy
Yes,
is good.
yes.
It's just that we must have wisdom to tell ourselves, is this something that I want? Does, if this behavior carry on, will I make people more happier or I make people suffer? Why do I make people suffer? Because I'm suffering myself and I don't feel good. Why should I make other people to suffer the same? Then I will change. And that is because the person reflect, to me, and I see it, and I, with my wisdoms, and I say, no, I'm going to transform. And that's how it goes.
That's
Yeah.
very nice, Ipo, because normal people, when they see other people doing something bad, the seventh consciousness, the judgmental mind will say, that person is bad.
Bad.
But in your case, you see other person doing bad, the seventh consciousness is looking at the self to see whether or not I'm the same with that person or not. So in short, you're able to change yourself for the better, even if the other person is the one doing bad.
That's the cultivation of mindfulness.
Yes.
And this is why I say mindfulness is very important.
Yes. That's very nice of you. Thank you for that example.
And Erwin,
Yes.
bad people is also like a field of merits for you because it will allow you to influence goodness in others.
That's true. That's true. But I noticed that there are times that we are not wise enough. So there are times that we cannot
Influence.
them. So we need the right causes and condition also.
Mm.
Otherwise, we would,
We'd exhaust ourselves.
yeah.
Yeah. Why someone changed his name to unconscious mind?
That's
If the discussion is making me unconscious. I'm like, earlier I was starting to understand and suddenly, okay. But yes, Shifu, it's not empty. Yay, it's just unconscious.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions? It's 9:31 already. So unless you have more questions, I don't mind staying a little bit more if you have questions. If not, then we will proceed with the dedication of merits, and then we'll take photo, and hopefully we can invite more people because some people are unconscious already of the study group. So we're getting fewer and fewer attendees, so we have to help invite more people for them to be conscious about us. Okay. Okay, so palms join for the dedication of merit. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to turn on your video so we'll have more people?
Just for the picture.
Yeah, let's have a picture. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Lotus flower. 1, 2, 3. Yes, thank you very much, Bramble
Thank you,
Myeon
everyone.
and Bramble Chuyi and Bramble Yohui.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Good night.
Thank you.
All the best. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Master, you too.
Please stay conscious.
Good night, Ariel.
You have to because of your students.
I have to, Shifu.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.